not being respectful of your fellow commissioners.
It was not, it wasn't recorded.
Tell
Call you
everybody I
Diego out of
Okay,
recording.
we're on.
I'm telling everybody, man, I broke that stuff. I mean, it hurt like
I'll
man.
officially call this meeting of the Seneca
Okay,
County
left.
Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, September 8th to order. Please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Zoller will lead us with the prayer.
Dear Lord, thank you for this wonderful weekend. Please give us the wisdom to do your will and listen to the people of Seneca County to make right decisions. And more importantly, dear Lord, thank you for the wonderful game the OSU Buckeyes had this weekend. Thank you so much. In your name, amen.
Yeah, well, at halftime, a lot of people were yelling, Jesus, I know that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stacy.
Here.
Commissioner Zoller.
Here.
Commissioner Kirschner.
Here.
We'll have the signing of the journal, and I'll accept a motion to approve the DVD recording of the previous session from Tuesday, September 1st, and the written index of that meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. All right. Do we have any adjustments to this printed agenda? Anybody knows of Stacy?
Ice skating rink.
Okay, so that would be new? Old. Oh, yeah, we talked about that one. So
What was that?
the grounds permit for the ice skating.
This year, over last year.
Anything else anyone needs to add? Okay, so thank you. All right, we had down at 10 to have some discussion on the revolving loan fund. And I believe we have a guest here, Josh. All right. So, I don't know what information you want to share with, and you're welcome to stay there, or you can come up here. Our meetings are recorded. If you visually want to get seen, you have to come up to the counter. to get-
I'm fine.
Okay.
I don't know how familiar the commissioners are with Community Development Block Grant, but the state of Ohio gets about $42 million last year, 41 this year. We anticipate, if funding levels remain consistent with the 1% reductions to CDBG nationwide, we'll get about $40 million in program year 2016. And what the state of Ohio does with that money is we take our 1% cut for admin, and then we put $20 million into a community development program, which you guys are probably familiar with. $10 million goes into the CHIP program, which matches our home funding from HUD as well, Housing and Urban Development. And then the remaining $10 million goes into our water and sewer and economic development program. And my role with the state of Ohio at the Ohio Development Services Agency is working with the community development program and also the ED program. So the community development program, we have 4 sub-grant programs in that. The allocation program, in which we distribute funding on a formula basis to all eligible jurisdictions in the state. So Seneca County every year receives an allocation. And then you're also eligible to compete for some competitive awards, which are downtown revitalization, neighborhood revitalization, and critical infrastructure. And then the economic development program grants the county the ability to make a loan for up to $500,000 for fixed asset financing for businesses, and then also public offsite infrastructure grants to assist with if they need water and sewer upgrades or road widening, something like that, a rail spur. So those are opportunities that the county has available. So the revolving loan fund program fits in for program income generated off of those CDBG dollars. If Seneca County has made loans in the past, those repayments get capitalized in a local revolving loan fund. If you've made facade loans for private rehab through a downtown revitalization, it also goes in there. And then the sale of real property or personal property for anything that CDBG helped to acquire or rehab also goes into your program income account. So, did you guys have any questions?
Yeah, so the revolving loan fund program in the state of Ohio, is it still an active program and one that Ohio is behind, or is it something that's dissipating? How would you characterize the revolving loan fund?
A necessary evil of receiving CDBG. So There are always going to be instances where we generate program income, and the state has chosen to allow local communities to retain that. Not every state does that. Some states actually claw back all of that, and then they respend it out through things like the community development program that we have. But at the state, we realize that economic development works best when it's locally determined, so we allow you guys to keep that. Part of the bargain with the rules and regs of Community Development Block Grant is that those funds need to be used regularly and consistently, because as a state, if we have a stagnant balance that doesn't turn over very often, we're not demonstrating need to the federal government that we need that $40 million each year in new money. So as of last June, we had about $25 million statewide. There were close to 50 revolving loan funds, economic development revolving loan funds that were deemed to be high, which is, our definition is greater than $100,000, and then stagnant, which would be minuscule projects or projects less than, like, maybe less than 3 projects. Our cutoff was 3 or more, but we had exceptions for the dollar amounts when we put our letters out. So our goal as a state is to make sure that the funds at the local level keep moving, just so that we can demonstrate the need for the new money that we get every year.
Is, assuming that a county has an active revolving loan fund, are there more funds available if that county's administering that fund and have a number of requests?
Absolutely. One of our more successful revolving loan funds is Mercer County. They have about $3.5 million in outstanding debts that they're still collecting on. And they move the money out very regularly. The last count I had, I think they had $200,000, and they've done 3 projects in the last 6 months. So what they did was they were in a pinch. They didn't have enough to cover the entirety of the project, so they came in for an economic development grant, which we assisted in.
And then what are the criteria for use it or lose it? I mean, at what point do you come back to the county and say you're inactive? You know, you either need to send that money back or you need to use it for another project.
So I've worked with the revolving loan fund program for just about a year. So historically, this is all things I've collected third hand. When we monitor our statewide balance and we see that it's approaching the $30 million mark, that's usually when we start moving towards requiring people, local communities, to commit their revolving loan fund as a grant to their allocation program or to their competitive set-asides. I want to say it was 3, maybe 4 years ago where it was actually a requirement, and then we would penalize the county if they didn't take action. This time around, it was a suggestion, not necessarily a requirement, a strong suggestion that if you're above $100,000 and you haven't been moving in the money recently, we would like you to commit it. And next year, come March, April, we're going to reevaluate those stagnant accounts and their level of compliance with our request, and then we may actually move to make a requirement.
So the suggestion and or requirement happens when the funds are inactive, people aren't using the monies. But again, if the revolving loan fund were, the activity was relatively robust, there is still money that we could apply for to fund that for other projects.
Absolutely.
And again, to be clear, there is no requirement at this point in time that it's a use it or lose it situation. Okay, but there was a suggestion that could happen.
Definitely. And it's always something that the state, we always retain the ability to do that, to claw back funding in the event that there are misuses of funds or that they've stagnated for an excess period of time.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear about the use it or lose it situation.
Yep.
All right.
Oh,
And that would be
make-
expressed in your administration agreement that you guys sign once every 3 years as well.
I want to make sure that I'm perfectly clear on this, because I was on the revolving loan fund committee, and you're right, the last meeting we had was in 2013, prior to your tenure here, Roxanne, but if I recall, there was $200,000 that was maximum. I'm going to make sure I've got the right one here. $200,000 that's in the fund. We had about 60 or 90,000 that was used. There was about 110,000 that wasn't used. I want to, again, to make sure, and there was a loan that was being repaid gradually, and there was some uncertainties on the collectability of that. I just want to make sure I'm on the right one here, and the process here is kind of a stopgap measure that businesses that want to expand, or they could come to this revolving loan fund. If they can't get conventional financing, this is another alternative
Correct.
for them to apply for this, and if it's approved by the board, then we can loan the money. But I was under the understanding the maximum was, well, 200,000, and if we got 60 or 90 that's still outstanding, then it was only the balance between that. But now I'm understanding if projects come to the plate and they're looking for this gap financing, that it can be greater than that if we apply for it. Is that a statement, or is that 200,000, is that the max figure?
I'm not sure that I'm fully understanding your question, so let me give it a shot. So the Economic Development Program's maximum award is $50,000, and that's, or $500,000, sorry. That's new money that the state would grant to the county, $500,000. The revolving loan fund takes on the characteristics of the Economic Development Program, but there's no maximum award that we actually have written in. It's a kind of a case-by-case basis. We did an offsite infrastructure project in Allen County back in, I want to say February, March, where we approved it, and it was $600,000 to extend sanitary sewer to a rail plant. So we're comfortable.
Excuse me, those are public funds. I'm talking about private individuals that come to the revolving loan fund.
Correct. I mean, we would be okay with you guys giving a $600,000 loan if the state was comfortable with your underwriting of that. $600,000 is an awful lot of money to give out in a loan where, I mean, by definition, because this is a gap financing program, they're not typically bankable. So that's an awful lot of money to put into one basket.
Just is there, it's for fixed asset financing only?
The loan program, yes.
Okay.
There is an exception. You can do working capital with the revolving loan fund money as a loan, but it's capped at 30% of the program income generated over the last year. In certain instances, we would entertain waiving that requirement, but we don't generally like to because there's no coverage. If you don't help rehab a building, or if you don't help buy machinery and equipment, then if they default, it makes it harder to claw back your funds.
Well, having the inside track with this, do you believe that the revolving loan fund program will be an ongoing program, or is it?
Definitely.
Okay. All right, so it's worth trying to apply for some funds because some funds are available there.
Yeah, and the only way that you can really capitalize it through the state level substantially is through that ED loan program. So if you guys have a project that exceeds what your balance is here at the
Right.
county level, you can ask for additional assistance.
Does that affect in any way then other applications we might have for grants if we were heavily funded in a revolving loan fund? I mean, does that in any way?
So one of the largest balances that we have in the state is Geauga County, and they're close to $1 million. And they had a neighborhood revitalization grant, $300,000 request to assist with the township center. They wanted to rehab it and make it ADA accessible. Also with like sidewalk improvements and stuff. And we actually declined the request for funding, even though it scored well enough where we would have funded it, because they had such a substantial balance. We said,
I just don't want to put other programs at jeopardy is my only point.
oh, no.
Well, see, I didn't realize this could be used for government projects. I thought this was strictly for the private sector. If they go to the financial institutions and they need gap financing, they could come to, in our case, regional planning, fill out the application, bring it to the board of the revolving loan fund, and that we would approve it or disapprove it.
Right.
I was really unaware that we could use this, and I would actually be against using this for government funds. This to me is for private funds, how to spur business growth.
Our preference would be that it would be used for economic development. It's called an economic development revolving loan fund. And part of our justification to HUD as for allowing you guys to keep it here locally is that you're revolving it and reinvesting it in job creation activities. But if there aren't good deals or many deals where CDBG would be a good
Right.
gap financer, we still need you guys to prove that it's revolving to the feds. And so we actually have a process in place where you can waive the job creation requirement. Historically, we have not declined a request to waive a job creation requirement, but we still have the power to do so. So it's one of those things where if you're sitting on a large balance and it hasn't moved for a while, the state, its first preference would be that you spend it on a job creation activity or project, like you're suggesting. But if it's stagnant, hasn't been used for a while, we would like you to do a quality of life improvement project so that you can, you know, help pitch your community to a business that wants to locate here, expand, to stay in the future.
I mean, well, it's a self-fulfilling end to the process. If you're not active and you're not doing anything with it, you pretty much put yourself in a situation in which that money's either gonna be requested to come back or to be used for other reasons.
Right.
So we have put ourselves in a position, not meeting since 2013, to say that we're inactive. My point is, I think that we need to be more dynamic in that process and begin meetings, and there are certainly a number of companies in Seneca County who could use some financing for fixed assets or other reasons that we could help increase jobs or retain jobs with.
Okay, Commissioner Kirchner, how do we get the word out then?
I think it's pretty simple. I mean, you know, I think that you get the word in the public eye, either by newspaper or by social media, to let them know that these funds are available and that the applications will be accepted and that we're meeting on a regular basis. And, you know, in my opinion, we would have more applications than we could handle.
And do we work with the local financial institutions that
That's
people would
part of
go
the
for
process.
conventional
I would suggest that.
financing?
Yeah.
And,
Part of the process, we get referrals from those
Sure.
institutions, yeah.
That's where most of our revolving loan funds, the successful ones, their leads come from the community banks.
Right.
And Commissioner
Well, this is
Kirchner,
where
you're
the local media will be the most helpful there to get it out.
Well,
to
I
the
think,
public that-
I think as, you know, as was stated, the local banks that have a project that doesn't quite qualify under their underwriting standards, but say, geez, I like these guys and I really think they can be successful, that's probably gonna be the best source of referrals.
Correct.
and you're going to revitalize our
Well,
committee that hasn't met and bring, and get them together.
I would like to, we've invited some of them here today.
Okay,
We have one,
Okay.
yes.
But actually, to reenact the committee, we have to have referrals come in.
No,
To be
you just
able
have to have,
to-
you have to have a reorganizational meeting. I mean, to say that, I mean, it's self-fulfilling. If you don't meet, nothing's ever gonna happen.
right.
So, you know, we've gotta do what we do with the county and with other, with other businesses that know what they're doing forward, come up with a plan. You know, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So we need to have a plan that says, these are the things we're gonna do in order to get referrals. And then hopefully go back to the state and say, you know, we've got a pipeline that's sufficient that we need to apply for some more money.
Correct.
Good. Well, applaud you for getting that going again and looking into this. So hopefully is that committee appointed by us or is appointed by regional? How is that?
There's a.
It's appointed by the commissioners.
From what I seen, there was only one person on there that was a commissioner appointment, and that was whoever the commissioner was that sat on that board.
Okay.
They all should be appointed by the commissioners.
Right.
There needs to be a member from a local community bank, someone with commercial lending experience, and there also needs to be a representative of the LMI community. And you guys have the power to pick who that would be.
Okay.
All that's been done in the past. However, most of those folks, you know, believe that their term is either expired or, you know, they're no longer interested because nobody's ever
Because
called
there has
them.
been a
or,
meeting.
You know, some of the
Yeah.
people have left the banking business and doing other things and that kind of stuff. So it's just, it needs a total relook. We need to find out whether unexpired terms of folks, if they want to continue to serve, and if they don't, we need to reappoint. We just need to get the thing back active again. It's got away from us.
Okay. Great. So you've got that moving.
I,
Attempts are
well,
starting
today's
to-
the first attempt at it.
Okay.
We'll see. I think that, you know, our commissioner representative is Commissioner Zoller. We will come back after today's short meeting, after this meeting, and make some recommendations as to who who those appointments ought to be, and whether or not we need to accept resignations from people that now are on that committee, and then reappoint so that we can become active.
Good plan. Well, Josh, thank you for your time.
Josh,
Auditor
thank you
Julie.
very much. Appreciate the drive.
If there are taxpayer questions, who do we direct them to? Commissioners or regional planning?
I'm sorry, pardon?
Taxpayer, if somebody has questions, who should they go to with us or to regional planning with?
It is my feeling that,
questions?
is that the way it was set up, they go through regional planning.
Just thought maybe you wanted that in paper.
Taxpayer questions regarding what?
Revolving loan fund.
Yeah.
If
But
somebody
they wanna
wants-
make it,
they
how
wanna
they- what do they fill in the
They're interested
application out?
now,
How
they
do
wanna
they-
know how this is gonna work. Coming your way, Roxy.
Yeah, I would
We're sending
hesitate,
you-
I would wait until after the reorganization meeting to say who they ought to contact, because what we might do within the organization itself is come up with a contact person who will accept those applications and then run them past whoever needs to see them. What I don't want to have happen is we get applications and they sit in a drawer someplace and the board's not called to meet. So, I mean, that can happen as well. We just need to make certain that we are proactive in our approach in getting applications in. Yes?
Would I be allowed to point out that if anybody wants these funds, they cannot order the equipment, they cannot purchase the equipment, they can't, we've had a lot of loans fell through because they went ahead and ordered it and then come to us.
We gotta line this all up before they put
Right.
any action in place.
Right.
Okay.
That's one of the challenges of using CDBG for economic development, is meeting all the federal requirements like environmental review.
Funds have to
So
be
in your
approved
education-
before money's spent.
Right.
Correct.
In your education process of promoting the program, obviously, all of those things too, yeah.
Right.
Part of that.
Or any contracts are signed, or
Yeah.
any dirt is moved.
So if anybody's getting to thinking right now, oh, this would be a way, but they may not
Now,
be
let's go
eligible
ahead
automatically.
and let it out and then we'll go out and get the money. Well, that doesn't happen
They
that way.
can't work that way, okay.
Between the Review Times article and the Advertised Tribune article, that we'll have 4 or 5 phone calls.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will.
And so your question is, well asked, Julie, and I don't really know who to refer those phone calls to at this point, because nobody really has working knowledge of what's going on with the committee.
Whether they come here or they go to regional
Well-
planning, obviously communicate with each other and questions being asked, and who do you follow up with once things are reorganized? All right. Thank those of you who are here for this
Yeah.
purpose. If, I guess some of you are staying for a meeting anyway,
Not me.
after this meeting.
I would like to point out, if they have back taxes owed, real estate, personal property, payroll taxes, they're not gonna be eligible. They gotta have their ducks in a row and have a good plan. Thank you.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. That wraps that up. We'll go back to the top of our agenda here. We've got someone else, I think, coming at 10:30, but they're not here yet from Regional Growth Partners. So in Jobs Ohio, so we'll continue, we'll go back to the old business. Let's address what we added so we don't forget it. The grounds permit application for the ice skating rink for Courthouse Square came in after our last meeting. And I don't remember the exact dates they requested, sometime December through
Yep.
late March. And I asked Stacy because I was trying to refresh my memory. Last year, I believe, it was December to the end of January. They extended it because December was too warm to freeze ice, right?
Yeah.
In a nutshell. And so it extended into, we granted it to continue, since it was already set up and so forth, into February. As long as we're not, which, gonna be in any type of construction, I'm okay with it. I kind of thinking early March, end of February as a time frame, so we know, because it takes some time to clean things out of there, because if it's frozen solid, they can't even get the sand moved out of the way until it's thawed enough to move that. And that would leave the month of March to get things restored before we are tearing them up for courthouse. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'm not against it by any means.
What is
The request
Specifically.
is for
the request, time-wise?
Thursday, December 3rd through Saturday, March 12th. Is what the request, the time frame is for.
What I have had in the conversations with the individual is that they would have to vacate by March 1st. Now, as far as the sand is still there, if we're gonna excavate and we're gonna dig up the ground, if there's a couple handfuls of sand there, that's not really a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm stating is March 1st. Now, if we find that construction's not gonna start till April or May, then we could extend that. But if, from a contractual standpoint, I would say that March 1st would be the drop dead, that would be the date that we would state now, because we don't know what's gonna happen as these contracts and everything's gonna transpire.
Right.
Now, I'm not really worried about the sand that's there, because that's
Yeah.
really immaterial.
Yeah, I just think of the time frame it took to get things, I mean, obviously by weather driven, cleaned up after last year's.
Yeah, the only covenant that I would put in the request, I'm absolutely okay with it too, is that if site work, for whatever reason, the contractor would want to be in site work or measurements or whatever the heck they might want to do prior to March the 1st, that, you know, a 10-day notification would be sufficient to ask them to leave. So what I would say, grant it through March the 12th with a covenant that says we reserve the right to give you a 10-day notification to vacate because of construction.
I don't know with that.
That works. And that goes through the judges and everybody else to approve.
Yes, and I've gotten one approval with the same thought process from one of the judges. The other judge had no comment, and sheriff, no security needed. And those were the required signatures that we needed, so.
Okay.
It's back to you for approval. If that's what you want in there, I can put that in there and get it back to her.
Sounds good. You don't need formal action on that, right? Just a new. All right.
Yeah, just to be very clear that, you know, we're not gonna invoke that 10-day if there isn't a reason to, but it could happen.
Under old business with the Joint Justice Center, we had a negotiations session on Friday, so not done with that. I guess that's to be continued with the Quando, with the, as the owner's representative, and lots of discussion on that. Our next scheduled meeting is Friday. Not sure if that has been able to be moved up or not.
Still 3 o'clock, as
Okay,
far
so
as
at
I
this
know.
moment, it's at 3 o'clock, that might get moved up to noon. I was hearing that the judges might not be having, we had to move it back because of a meeting, a routine meeting they have, and I was hearing that that might change. So if it does, we're gonna take the opportunity to move it up a little bit, not have it till late in the afternoon, but we will have to wait and see. At this moment, it's 3 o'clock over at the municipal building.
The only request I would make is, I know the judges have their annual or quarterly meeting at noon that day. You know, rather than continue to move it later in the afternoon, is it possible to put it earlier in the day?
Do you remember if anybody else had problems with earlier in the
I
day?
don't remember.
You know, I would rather go back to 10 or 9 than I would go to 4 or 5.
All right. We'll check on those things. We'll follow up. I heard from one of the judges that they might not be holding their meeting because somebody had a conflict. And if that was the case, I'd freed up the slot. So we'll make sure that, obviously, the public notice goes out as with the exact time and emphasizes if the time's changed and all that. But, good point, if we could do that. There's nothing else on that from anybody? We will go on to dog warden is listed here next.
Yeah, as you recall, we've had some estimates to extend the paneling out in the facility out there, which would allow them to wash the facility down, increase some insulation, and the ultimate goal would be to put some sort of air conditioning unit in there to make the kennels a little easier in the summertime and so forth, and also to save on heat in the wintertime. But we've asked our maintenance supervisor, I've asked our maintenance supervisor to go out there, and as he's looking at it, he's saying that the building has it's only a 4 or 5 year old building, and it's not that old a building. It's got sufficient insulation in it, and he's saying kind of the overall goal here is really just to get air conditioning in the unit in the facility instead of spending $17,000, I think it was, to add on to the siding and increase the insulation. He didn't think that was necessary, and he was to get a couple bids. He's saying instead of spending 17 and then adding another 5, 6 on for air conditioning, he said, Fred, he said, I think all you really need to do is just put air conditioning in the unit. And he thinks you can get that done for $4,000 or $5,000. John, I believe, has got 2 bids so far.
I've only received one
Okay,
so far. He did say there was supposed to be another one coming in, but I have not seen it yet.
Okay, so my recommendation is don't spend the 17 and don't, it's adequate what they have for the insulation and is sufficient, we call it wainscoting, but if you've been out there, there's a,
Yeah.
where they can take hoses and
washable
wash
surface,
the kennel
yeah.
down. They're not washing up high, they're washing down below, and I think it's like 8 foot off the ground. That's really sufficient, so I don't think it's necessary for us to do that, but if we do find it, I think it may be advisable, and there is sufficient funds in that facility, in that account to be able to do that. Now, that brings me on to another subject. I have investigated with the prosecutor, and there's the funds that are in the dog warden funds has to be used for the care of animals and so forth. I've reached out to CCAO, and they confirmed that it has to be used for the care of dogs and so forth, and that whole administrative part of it. But they said what we can do, and what I would advocate, is that we can petition the courts to take some of the funds out of the dog and kennel fund and put it over to the sheriff's fund, because the sheriff does interact with the dog warden and does on the weekends and holidays and in the evenings does handle some dog warden's responsibilities. So what I have reached out, and what we have to do is we would have to petition the courts. It would have to be approved, whatever we would want to ask to have the funds transferred over to the sheriff. We'd have to be approved by one of the judges, and then we would have to petition somebody down in Columbus. I'm not sure who it is. We could, again, have to talk with that John at CCAO. He's the one that gave me that recommendation. That is a tool, an avenue that the commissioners can use if there are funds in this pot that can only be used in this pot, that as long as we can find a correlation to this pot, we can take it from this area and put it to this area, some of the funds. And so I would advocate that we would look at petition the courts to have some of these funds transferred over to the sheriff's department, which the sheriff could desperately use anyway because of his loss of revenue.
Has the sheriff made a request for additional monies?
No?
I guess I'm not in favor of moving the funds unless we knew he needed them. And my understanding is, yes, he's available to help on the weekend if needed. And that would be kind of a rare circumstance that our dog warden and deputy dog warden aren't available. They pretty much have a schedule if somebody's on call all the time. I think the involvement is pretty limited. It's not that they are willing to do more, but I just don't think they typically have to. I mean, they get the call, dispatch gets the call, and it involves a dog, but then the call gets made to whoever's on the call list, the dog warden or deputy dog warden. So I guess I'm not sure we need to go through the process to move this money that she has earned and has, and none of us are profit centers, we know that, it's government, but she's got that money's in there for things that, and that's because I think it's a credit to the successful program she's done in getting dogs licensed here in Seneca County, is how she's got the money built up, which I'm glad for the most frugal attempt at doing the improvements that needed out there by all means, with money she's got. But since that isn't a matter of, if you're gonna make that request, it has to happen now, or it has to happen within so many days of the funding being at a certain level or anything, I think we kind of wait and see what happens as we budget for 16, because the impact of your referencing of the Sheriff's Department of loss of revenues from the ICE program, that's when we're gonna see the hit, as we try to budget for 16 of knowing what that impact is. I think we're gonna get through this year without, yes, it's taken a hit because, and our carryover has buffered that impact. But budgeting next year is going to be the concern. That's just, that's how I'm looking at this.
We know that this year, that with $800,000 loss of revenue, that we felt the net to the sheriff, certainly there's gonna be some reductions of expenses, but we had the conversation up here at a meeting that the net effect was going to be about a $450,000 loss of revenue for the sheriff. The fact is, the sheriff's going to have about $450,000 less of income than what he was expecting, even once you subtract out a lesser expense with the reduction of ice.
But he
And I'm-
he didn't have expenditures for all of those funds. That money came in from the program, but it's not looking like this year he's gonna run out of money by the end of the year. And what he'd do, he'd come back and ask for things that this board, previous boards have helped him with funding of vehicles and things, because he was bringing that money into the general fund. But it wasn't a matter of,
His
Operations.
budget between the
I mean,
jail and the road is $5 million, and even during the good times, ICE only brought in $2.4 million. So the general fund still supports all of, it just helps, the ICE helped offset the cost out to the jail and to the road, so.
It's not gonna come in from ICE, it's gotta come in from the general fund. And I'm just looking at, if we've got this pot of money over here, that we can somehow get some of that over there, it's gonna have less effect on the general fund.
Look, I
And what we're
think it's,
talking
no,
about
I
is
think it's
a
not a
carryover.
bad idea. If we've got some money over there, we're probably not gonna use, that if it's possible, if there's a vehicle by which we can do it. But I don't think there is any immediate danger that anybody's gonna run out of operating money. So why don't we just keep that in mind when we do the 16 budget? We certainly can have that in the back of our minds as a consideration, and maybe we can do something with it later. But there is no immediate need, so let's defer the decision on that until we have more need to talk about it.
I mean, you're right, I mean, it's not something that today, but it's just gonna take our carryover, reduce it down, and I hate to spend the carryover.
Well, according to the discussion we had, we're not gonna spend excess money. We've got enough revenue coming in to cover daily expenses. I mean, our core income and our core expenses are covered, even with the loss at the sheriff's office.
I don't understand, we're gonna lose, the net effect is what I've heard numbers thrown around, it's
It'll
400,000.
just be that, it'll be less of an excess.
Yeah, oh, yeah, oh, no, we have enough money to run the county. Instead of having a $2.2 million carryover, we may end up the year at 1.8. So no, we can operate it, but I'm just trying to look at ways that we don't have to take out of that fund. But I'm fine with that.
nothing else on that
It's
one.
gonna be fun on budget time next year with the loss, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah. As far as a museum update, I'll let Commissioner Kirschner talk about the one aspect, I'll talk about the other. The operational stuff, I've been working on, the task force committee we put together, we've been continuing to meet. We meet again later this month. I'm looking at Nikki, I think it's 23rd?
Yeah.
23rd maybe. Our group comes back together. We've been working with the gentleman with SCORE on looking at operations, what would be a good picture, what the operations of the museum should look like in the near future. And so we're still working through those things, and we meet again on the 23rd. And then on the other museum front, the physical facility improvements, repairs needed. We've kind of turned that over to your strategic planning committee.
Right. And we are also meeting, we have ongoing meetings about that. There are bids outstanding for the total renovation and also little pieces of it. So we'll have those in, we'll get those discussed. So we're kind of breaking this down into the operations of the museum and the actual physical needs of the structure.
Yeah, and we're just waiting on some estimates so we can utilize Tifton Charitable Foundation
Right.
grants received, the Barnsteinzer Foundation willingness to put some money in with that. And then we just need those estimates so we can
Just need the numbers.
line up the work, okay.
Well, the reason I asked that to be on the meeting is I've had a meeting with the Barnstable, with the Historic Foundation. And while they have not, they had some questions they wanted answered. And one of the questions which solved a lot of their problems, if they put these funds in, they would like to have an opportunity to sit down with the contractor and to make sure that as these renovations are being made, that they do it, that is very, is gonna keep the integrity and the structure of the old facility. And matter of fact, I talked with the contractor that we're talking about doing this morning, and I had two questions that I had. One was, is it possible, could you start construction this year? Two is, are you willing to sit down with not only the commissioners, I know there's specifications that are being written up for this project, but the foundation would like to have some input on it, so that, you know, again, there's some pillars that have to be replaced. There's various ways to replace it. You could put cheap aluminum siding pillars up there or recreate it, and they want to make sure that that what's being done is, will keep the integrity of the building.
Well, I think we got two phases, and certainly we want to keep them involved in it.
Yeah.
But right now, we're worried about the bones of the building. Right now, we're worried about the structure itself to make certain that we stabilize it. The cosmetic portion of things, which is going to be necessary, but the first thing that we need to do is get the building stabilized.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're talking about. I mean, exactly. With the porch, with the foundation, and all that. They'd just like to have a meeting. They are 99 point, they said they can't come 100% commit yet, but they're 99% sure that they can go ahead and get the funds and get those things taken care of. The question is, in where I've come back before, could we do this in 2 phases where their $25,000 contribution, I think that's what we asked for them, 25 for them, wasn't it? 50 from us, 25
I think it was
from them,
20,
and,
30, and 30, or 20, 30, and 20. I don't,
yeah, okay, whatever, if that could be done in a 2-year phase. And because of investments and so forth, if they commit to it, could they pull the funds out at the last possible moment? If they have to put it all in right now because of the way the stock market is and so forth, it would have a dramatic effect on them. If they can wait till the bill comes in, and then go ahead and transfer, as long as they would commit to it, was that something they could work towards? Let's say if they're gonna invest $30,000 and we start construction this year, which by the way, the contractor, if we award him the contract, and keep it under the 50,000, he could start construction this year, or half the project. Could they not, did they have to have their funds in at the time we wrote the contract, or could they wait until the first bill come in? That would give them an opportunity, maybe the stock market to kind of correct itself. Those were the questions they had, and I said I had to go back to my
yeah.
board and see what, if that could be done. I guess
It's
their
a
question.
contribution that'll get made into, I'm gonna look to Julie since since you're still here, Julie. Aren't you glad
We
you
put
came
money
to our
in
meeting?
place, we put money in place in 215 for that project, we put the full amount in there. We did pay the one check in, so we have the money there, so it could be possible that,
As I say, theirs is coming back as a contribution for that specific cause. So if we act on things based on having the money's available, then their contribution can come in as reimbursement. Is that correct? Later, Julie? From the
It's a
foundation?
donation, Stacy.
it's a donation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a donation.
I mean, it can be, they can write that, but it just goes back into general fund.
Okay, because we would, okay.
They can make 2 contributions, and they can make it at the last possible moment. Let's say if we decided to do half this year, half next year, they could wait till December 31st, let's say if the stock market, as long as they come in this year.
Well, it
They're
comes
half the
based on the time
contribution.
framing of when the.
Or does it all have to be
payout
at
was.
once?
Well, Stacy, everything's in place right now?
Everything's in place right now. So it could come in at any time, as long as we have an agreement with them saying that they will, I mean,
Yeah,
do the.
okay. So that's what they're waiting for, and then if we are gonna act on it and we wanna start renovations this year, we need to move on it, because the contractor's time is filling up.
Right.
And the key would keep the bid under the threshold
Well,
under
we're-
50,000.
yeah, that's what we're waiting on these.
We don't have any paperwork.
We don't have these
anything
estimates.
From the contractor.
We're waiting on the
Well-
estimates from Palmer to give us an idea, so we're trying not to eliminate any of our local contractors from being eligible to, if it ends up, we can't break it down and it has to be bid. So Palmer's supposed to be giving us those estimates, and I know they were asked to have those to us by today. And this has been a push, like a second or third push from them to, let's get those in, because we're losing days. But we don't have that. So that's where that's at.
Just trying to keep the project moving.
I agree. I've been wherever you're at. Anything else on museum? Okay. That concludes our old business. Our visitors from Regional Growth Partnership Jobs Ohio are here. Would you guys like to go now, or I don't want to know what your time schedule is. I can let you do your introductions and stuff now.
We can do that now if it pleases
At-
you guys,
We're between old and new business, so we'll put you right in there between there.
right between old and new.
So are you old or you new?
Current. Yeah. I
Please
feel
don't
it
say
real
it.
old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are.
Old news.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Commissioner Stacy.
You're welcome, Mike.
Well, we'll just take a few minutes. I visited several months ago, just kind of give an update with Regional Growth Partnership and Jobs Ohio. My name's Mike Jay. I'm the Director of Strategic Networks with the Regional Growth Partnership. And with me today is Lisa Wagner, who is one of our project managers. And Commissioner Zeller, she probably looks familiar to you, because I think you
We have worked in the past.
worked in the past
Good to
together.
see you again.
You too.
We invited David Zack to be here today, and since I invited David Zack to be here today, two things happened. He blamed his daughter for breaking his ankle or leg or whatever it was with a skateboard or something. I didn't hear the story, and also I saw the announcement that he's gonna be working for the university, so.
And he was here earlier and departed. He came to
was
our
he
work
really?
session.
He
Said
We had a work
somebody
session.
said, he said, somebody said Mike Jay's coming, so I'm leaving.
So he's gonna,
He wheeled himself out of here on a scooter.
I believe that 100%. So did he bring his thermos with him? Because the last time I was here, he had his thermos of coffee.
He has a basket on his
Scoot.
his little scooter device, but I didn't see any thermos of coffee in there.
Thermos of coffee.
Probably wants to limit the, never mind. Sure, so.
There were three things I wanted to bring up with the Regional Growth Partnership. As you recall, we talked about it before, and workforce development's the number one issue still in economic development, just not in Seneca County, but all of Northwest Ohio, the Midwest, and basically the country. There's a new initiative going on with the presidents of the University of Toledo, Bowling Green State University, Northwest State, Terra State Community College, and Owens. They're all getting together to put an initiative together to try to address workforce development. We've got Carol right here. I mean, obviously, you have local individuals that work on workforce development. This is a new program, and so stay tuned. The Regional Growth Partnership is going to be very, very involved. I'm not sure how we're fitting into this, but I think we're kind of the housing entity for this project that's going on. So I'm finding out that in the 17 counties we work in, each individual county has different workforce development initiatives that's being done. This is the first time where all of the higher education presidents, I mean, we're talking, the CEOs of these organizations are getting together to try to address this. So there's just another mechanism that we'll have there, and I'm sure Carol will be hearing more about this as time goes on. The second thing I wanted to bring up is the FAM tour that we had in June, the familiarization tour, where we bring site consultants into Northwest Ohio to brag about what we have here. And it is a relationship building opportunity where the Regional Growth Partnership staff meets with these individuals. We had 6 veterans that came back. This is the 3rd year that we've done this. I just began with the Regional Growth Partnership March of last year, so this was my 2nd FAM tour that I participated in. But the interesting thing, we had 6 returning and 9 new ones, and they come from Detroit, Dallas, Quebec, Canada, Columbus, Cincinnati, Phoenix, Atlanta, Cincinnati, and New York City. They're all from around the country. An interesting thing, one gentleman, Luis Elcado from Keckler, Brown, Hill, and Ritter down in Columbus, joined us for the 2nd year. And I tease Luis, he reminds me of the Dos Equis man. He looks just like the actor that does the commercials. And I didn't know what type of a heavy hitter Luis was until another site consultant told me recently, is that when the United States opened the Cuban embassy in Washington, D.C., he was invited to attend that grand opening of that embassy. And he's going down to Cuba with an Ohio senator soon, and I'm not sure which senator he's going with. So this is the caliber of people that we have come here to learn about Northwest Ohio.
Well, can you get him to say, I don't expand my business very often, but when I do.
It's Seneca County, right? I'll remember that one for him. The unfortunate thing for you three is the one thing that we don't do is invite elected officials or local economic development people. And when we started this 3 years ago, that was a bone of contention, is why aren't you doing this? Well, the main reason is it's relationship building. We're not selling. to, I know you three pretty well. Mike, it's been years since we've done things together. I remember when you were at the bank, I was on your community advisory committee, and learned a lot about, the way you operate. Confidentiality is very, very important and so forth. But, with some of the mayors or elected officials, they just can't help it. They want to sell their community, and that's not what this is about. We had one partner that was at one of the events, and she was going around passing out her business cards and selling the community, and that's not what it is. We give them helicopter rides, and I think last year, Lisa, did you go in the helicopter with one of them last year, a couple of them? And we take them to the intermodal facility in North Baltimore, and then we take them to the CIC Club, Rattlesnake Island, show them the islands. And we work them pretty hard, but we let them play hard too for 3 days. The interesting thing is, one of the projects, McLean, that is being built in Findlay, Mike Quint, who's from Dallas, Texas, had worked on that project. He did not think Ohio was a good state to put a project in, and from previous FAM tours, we convinced him that Ohio, Northwest Ohio, is a great place. So he looked at a lot of different sites, found the one in Findlay. I happened to be with him when we left Findlay to go up to Port Clinton for one of their meetings, and we stopped, and there were the six veterans. I was with the 6 veteran site consultants, and we stopped, and he saw his building for the first time. He was there when it was a greenfield site, but saw it up in the air. He looked like a little kid, just getting out and just so proud. We took pictures of him in there, and the other 5 consultants were congratulating him for doing this. Very, very nice. His whole demeanor on Northwest Ohio and Ohio changed because of a previous FAM tour. So they are working, and we've got lots of other good testimonials. Third, international trade. Paul Zito. Holly, I think you've met Paul Zito in the past.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, he's our international guru. He used to work in the States office over in Europe for 12 or 13 years, a very long time. And he's got a trip to Japan and China this month. I attended a ribbon cutting in Kenton, Ohio, Sekisui, which is a Japanese company that makes plastic products. And what's good about Paul is that I've met, there were dozens of Japanese officials there and representatives from the companies, and their culture is a lot different. You remember Findlay started growing, one of the things, because they had international companies, and one of the things they needed to do was create their community to accept when you have, I think a lot of them were Japanese companies and families coming in. The university was very involved. But just like business cards, a lot of times, Fred, if I take your business cards and stick it in my pocket, yeah, they hold hands, they study the business card, they'll look on both sides and hold it for a long time. So I don't do it often, I have for years, but when I get the opportunity, and I feel odd because I don't do that on a regular basis. And then when you bow, just don't bow your head, you're a lazy American, you got to bow at the waist. And so Paul teaches all of this to not just me when I'm involved with an international prospect or Japanese and representatives in this case, but he'll do it to anybody in the whole 17 counties. It's working well.
It's unique, you're right, when you give it to them, you give them with both hands and bow. You don't just give them a bit like a lot of times, just give them a bit, no. Both hands.
Have you done it before?
Oh, yeah, because that, you're doing is you're giving yourself to them, you're showing them your respect to them and yourself.
Yeah, exactly, and it's important to them.
Oh, absolutely,
You have
it's
to do
key,
that,
it's
yeah.
key.
Last thing I want to mention on international is that Canada, I know when I was with the city of Fremont doing economic development, we did a lot of Canadian Ohio relationship building, and we haven't done that a lot recently. They're very close, the languages are similar, the monetary value is similar, we're just across the bridge. There's a lot of Canadian companies in Ohio. I think our #1 trading partner is Canada, and we're going to try to get that. You can talk to the mayor in Bowling Green. Every time I see him, he wants to get the Canadian connection going again. And I've worked with several in Fremont companies in Canada, so we're going to start getting that built up again. So opportunities for all of you. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn on over to Lisa. As I mentioned, we have project managers that put the deals together, and I know Commissioner Zeller had worked with Lisa on a project at one time. The interesting thing is, we split up the 17 county. Obviously, one of the counties that Lisa handles is Seneca County. We were in Sandusky earlier, met with the commissioners there, so I apologize, we were a little bit late coming in from when our scheduled time was. And, but Lisa puts the deals together. I don't do that anymore. I'm the outreach person to work with the different elected officials and communities. But she doesn't have time, and the other two gentlemen, they don't have time to come out and meet with the elected officials as much as they should, because they're trying to put the deals together. So she sliced some time out of her schedule, and so here she is. So I just wanted her to kind of give you a brief overview on the types of things that she does.
Good morning, thanks for having us. As Mike said, I'm one of the project managers for the Regional Growth Partnership and represent Jobs Ohio. Basically, I won't get into too much of the nitty-gritty details, but my job on a day-to-day basis is to go out and meet with companies and find out if there are any incentives that are available through the state. And if there aren't any available through the state, or maybe there are, but to work kind of in conjunction on the workforce side of things, if there are financing needs, whatever the needs of the project may be. Typically, the way that I find out about most of the projects that I work on is by working with our local economic development partners. You know, David Zach's been a great partner, Renee Smith. You know, we work very closely with them on almost a daily basis. They know what types of projects to bring me into. They know the timing of which to bring me into those projects, because the timing is also key to that, and also what other partners to bring to the table. So we work very well together, get everyone at the table. Hopefully, a lot of times it works out best to have everybody there at the same time to talk about all the different things that we can partner on and offer. And, you know, Holly, I used to work at the Port Authority and ran their financing program, so I'm very familiar on that side of things. And a lot of times, pieces of that puzzle may just include some financing. There's financing available through the state, there's financing available through the Port Authority, so we can kind of work together to find out what those needs may be. Most commonly, the state incentives that I'm able to work on are the Jobs Creation Tax Credit. If there are workforce training grants that we can assist on, then I'm able to sit down with a company and identify what incentives are available, and then work through that process through Columbus on getting those incentives approved, to what level that will be offered, and then get an incentive letter to the company. And if they want to move forward with the project in the state of Ohio, then we work with them through all the steps on getting everything approved and executed so that they can get the incentives in place. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I'm in Tiffin quite a bit, as well as all the other communities in Seneca County, but there's a lot going on. I feel like we have great partnerships here, so it really works well.
I just want to point one thing out. Back in the day, when the communities wanted the state to partner on a project, their economic development professional would call Columbus directly, if it was the Department of Development or whichever agency. That has changed. 4 years ago, when the governor created Jobs Ohio, the private entity, and ODOD, Department of Development, became the Department of Services agency, the way that you deal with them now is not calling up as the local person. And I was a local person in Fremont for 20 years, and it was very hard for me to realize that the game has changed. You gotta call Lisa Wagner to talk with Columbus anymore. I can't call up, even though I knew those people for years. So all the regions in the state, there's 6 of them. So every local economic development person has to call their regional person to talk to Columbus these days. And I understand that that's in most cases not a bad thing. I mean, fortunately, we've got 3 good project managers that represent the communities well. I don't know about the other regions. I'm going to guess there probably aren't 3 dynamic project managers for everybody else like we have. But I wanted to call the person and talk with them myself. Can't do that anymore. So that's why that relationship building is very important with the local people and our project managers. It seems to work well. How often do you call in projects?
We have the ability of calling in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to have projects reviewed. So that all depends on the timing of the project, when it's ready, if we have all the information we need. It really works out well if we can get on a call prior to needing the incentives approved and kind of vetting it out with Columbus, just so that they can get a good grasp on the project. And then offer letters come on Tuesdays and Fridays. So we can work pretty quickly on getting incentives and getting offer letters out.
And one of my training sessions when I first started a year ago March is to go down to Jobs Ohio, sit in that conference room about half this size, where their staff down there that makes the decisions on the project are sitting at an oval table. And I heard the different project managers from all throughout the state call in that morning with their projects. And it was really interesting to see the dynamics because, have you been in any of those?
Mhm.
Okay. The project managers are on the conference phone, and they're talking with the team down there, and the team, they verbally talk back and forth. But a lot of times, there's a lot of note writing going on, passing papers underneath to the team down there on the deals. And what all is being said and done, I don't know, but you have a good relationship with a project manager, with Columbus, and that works out well. We're fortunate, because I've witnessed it, that our 3 project managers have really good relationship with Columbus. So when we call in, they know that we're representing our communities well, and we're just not asking for pie in the sky or anything you could possibly get. They did their homework, they know the facts, and the timing's just right to present the program. And so they go back and forth in some calls and negotiate and so forth, and it works pretty well. So that's all we had. If you had any questions or anything of you, Lisa?
Go ahead, just any questions?
I'll be back in a
Thank
couple
you.
of months just to check up and say hi.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
appreciate you
All right,
taking the
thanks.
time to do that and for the overview. And it's always good to refresh and stay caught up with what's going on, so appreciate your time. Good to see you both again.
Thank you.
Get on to the next one.
We're here every Tuesday,
Thanks.
you're welcome, right there.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Bye. All right, this brings us to new business on the agenda. We'll begin with the bill vouchers.
Okay, bill voucher batch number 5493. I have an appropriation adjustment within the M&R fund, moving $20,000 from his project lines to his contract repairs line, excuse me. I have an appropriation adjustment within the general fund, moving $7,734.55 from domestic relations salary line to the judge's common pleas regular line. Also moving $215.99 within the Medicare line and $1,244.96 from the PDRS line. Total $9,195.50. This is at the request of Judge Shaw. A resolution authorizing a fund advance from the general fund to the VOCA expansion grant fund. $10,000 from the advance out to the advance in. I have an appropriation adjustment within the general fund, moving $3,000 from workers' comp to machinery. This is for a new item for the maintenance department's tractor. They're talking about trading in the old tractor for additional piece of equipment. John had asked if that was okay. We have a supplement to the permanent appropriation from the general fund, putting $4,360 into the transfers outline. This is for the GIS pay in when the health department, Board of Health got grant money to help support the GIS program. And Julie has asked this be transferred from the general fund to her real estate assessment funds, which she will now be funding GIS from.
Yes.
So to go along with that, resolution authorizing a fund transfer be made to the real estate assessment fund, moving that $4,360 from the general fund to the real estate assessment fund. I have a supplement to the permanent appropriations for the real estate assessment fund, putting $4,360 into the equipment line. She's going to purchase computers, different equipment for the GIS. She's also buying a server, so a portion of that's going to be put in towards the server as well. I have a resolution rescinding the board's orders of August 25th, 2015, volume 91, page 382, supplement to the permanent appropriations for the Seneca County Road 10, County Road 35, County Road 61 resurfacing fund. they did not get this to Budget Commission in time, so they had to rescind that. I have a resolution authorizing the Seneca County Board of Commissioners to enter into issue 1, round 30 cooperative agreements with the Seneca County Township Board of Trustees. Resolution authorizing President of the Board to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement and/or Local Transportation Improvement Programs and to execute contracts as required for issue 1, round 30 for Seneca County. I have a resolution accepting the recommendation of the Seneca County Airport Manager to apply for the ODOT grant and authorizing Holly M. Stacy, President, to sign on behalf of the board, retroactive to September 1st. A resolution authorizing agreement with Stantec Consulting Services for engineering fees associated with updating the airport layout plan, wildlife hazardous assessment, tree survey if needed, and government applications on behalf of the Seneca County Airport. And I have a resolution certifying unpaid assessments to the county auditor for collections, Ohio Revised Code Section 6117.02. And we have different billing areas: Bascom, Hanover, Heinsman, Honey Creek, New Regal. These will all be published. That's all I have.
Do I have a motion to approve resolutions as stated?
Make a motion to approve it as discussed.
Second.
There's a second. Any questions or concerns on any of the resolutions as brought before us?
Yeah, just one question on the GIS software and hardware. Is this part of the study that's being done? I mean, is this part of incorporating
No, there was.
recommendations?
No, the previous regional planning director, Jill, prior to Roxanne being in place, was working on a partnership agreement for GIS. That didn't all come into play because some of the partners couldn't make the commitment, et cetera. Anyway, that didn't happen. But in that time, the health department went ahead and moved and put some funding in place for GIS efforts. And so that was already in it, and they wanted to process it through, so they already given it to us, to the county, to be utilized for GIS purposes. So in checking back with Beth Schweitzer, the director of the health department, after the study was announced that they were gonna do the study and so forth, I said, okay, so the project as was isn't happening. There's a study gonna happen, it might define that we're gonna do something like that. I don't know what the results of the study will be. In the meantime, that fund's sitting there. If that is utilized for equipment, is that good by you? Because we didn't know then if Julie and Mark were gonna do some things jointly, separately. Once that all got worked out, they said just utilize the money for equipment, something that benefits the GIS on a countywide basis, and we'd be happy with it to know the monies were expended that way. In a nutshell, that's the result. So that money we've had a hold of for a while, and this puts it into play what it was given to us for.
Okay, I just didn't want to conflict with the recommendations.
Yeah, different than the study, because again, this came about before the study ever came about.
Okay.
That brings me to the next question. Do we need to act on this study, or what is that?
We adopted the study as presented to us last Tuesday. We did
Let's
that.
call the question.
We adopted this, we approved the study, but not what we're gonna do with the study.
Let's call a question on the motion, and then we can talk about that.
Okay.
All right, any more questions on the resolutions as stated?
No, none.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Yes.
Commissioner Zoller?
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes, I'll stand approved, thank you. All right, questions, other business?
We're not ready yet. What was, go ahead. 'cause that
Okay,
was
where do
related.
we stand at with the GIS study? When we approved the study,
Yep.
okay, spent $50,000, so the state gave us still taxpayers' money. What do we do with it? Where do we go?
Well, I think it's a matter of determining, the study made a recommendation that the efforts would be driven out of regional planning, I believe, is how it summarized it, is that correct?
Well, that was our
The end of the study
recommendation.
was a recommendation.
Yeah, that was our recommendation.
And then there was a substantial price tag with their thoughts on making it happen to the level which they thought it needed to happen. Again, it was a study. I don't know how that gets handled, because it was pretty healthy price tag.
Yeah, it was north of 300,000.
Yeah, so,
Well, that ain't gonna happen, but
yeah.
do we need to schedule a meeting where we get the stakeholders in, that now that they've evaluated the study, and
Well, there is
see if we come up with a consensus here?
there's a complete results of the study on your system.
I understand.
There has been, I think, another meeting scheduled somewhere in the future to review the results of that study.
I don't recall any. No, that's what I'm saying. We approved the study, but that's all we stand right now. I mean, do the commissioners just act on the study and say, this is what we're gonna do now, or whatever we decide?
Well,
Or do
it
we
entails
turn around and-
a lot of entities, not just the county, so I think it's a matter of if somebody wants to reconvene that group and start to try to implement any of the information from the study or not is gonna be up to a group, and I don't know if the North Central Ohio Council of Governments one is going to drive that, if regional planning, I don't know how it's gonna
Well,
happen.
from what I recall from the meeting, they said that once we had a chance to review that draft study, because it was a draft, as they put it, that they would reconvene that group to discuss the findings. What we looked at the last meeting was simply bullet points of different areas they talked about for backup, phase 1, 2, 3, et cetera. But we really didn't have any specific action plans.
Well, that's what, maybe if I could ask a regional planning director to reach out to the NCOR COG and to try to schedule a meeting now that everyone's had a chance to digest what the study has been. So now just to do a study instead of on a desk or on a mantle just infuriates me. Okay, now we've had the experts and we've had this argument for this discussion for at least 2 years since I've been here. Okay, well, my issue's always been, well, let's find out what someone outside of the community is saying. Well, we know we can't afford 300,000, but okay, let's dissect it down and since the COG has started it, can you
Yes, I can.
reach out to
I
them?
will.
Thank you. Would you support that? Do we?
Sure, again, I think there is a follow-up meeting that's going to be scheduled, but yeah, that's fine.
That's it.
That's it, all right. There's no other business. This brings us to an opportunity for citizens' comments at this time. Do we have anyone that would like to make comments? Pretty quiet. Everybody's tired of sitting here. All right. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned 11:14.